Other yellow hat guy here, back with another video. And let's talk Drake. No. Not Drake Bell. Aubrey Drake Graham. Should we have sympathy for him or not? He recently entered in some rap feuds with several guys, but one guy who was formidable enough to take him, he lost. Yeah, he lost. You might have thought that Drake was near invincible because Drake has, over the years, the last 12 years even, just risen, just evolved musically. And even that is worth dissecting and arguing, but I don't know how deep I'll get into it. I just saw a lot of stuff on the internet. This is one of the rap battles. Some of y'all are too young to remember. Jay-Z and Nas, Biggie and Pac, Ice Cube versus NWA. You know, there's loads of battles, but those are the three that come to mind right now that were just, the legendary ones. Now, Drake did get in a battle with Meek Mill, which he won that one. But you look now, it's like, did he really win that one? Because it's been discovered that he has ghostwriters. So, in rap, the gloves are kind of off. It doesn't really matter what's true or not if it's entertaining. And you can tell me that's just my opinion. Obviously, the truth matters, but what I'm telling you is when you hear Nas defeat Jay-Z in Ether, which is, one of, if not the most legendary diss to date, he says, "You 36 in a karate class, Tai Bo Ho, you trying to work it out, you trying to get brawlic, ask me if I'm trying to kick knowledge." Do we know that Jay-Z actually got Tybo? Where's the receipts, right? But we live in this social media age where not only do we get these diss tracks immediately on the internet, but we expect to be able to just pull up receipts. We want to see photo evidence. We want to see legal documents. We want to see that. And back then, you just waited for Funk Flex or whoever to drop it on the radio, and then you bought the CD, and that's how you knew these guys were going at each other. So this isn't entirely new. It seems like it's left field. It's not. Drake and Kendrick have been going at each other subliminally for like the last 10 years. Okay? And they've been kind of denying that one is going at the other. But it seemed like it stemmed from Kendrick releasing a verse on a song called Control. I believe it was Big Sean, the rapper Big Sean, his song. And Kendrick just kind of calls out everybody saying he likes these guys, but he's trying to be better than them. He's trying to kill all of them lyrically. Not boom, boom. Lyrically. And Kendrick is more than capable of doing all that. Trust me. And if not, research this rap battle because he's proven it. Now, Kendrick doesn't come off like this rap battle guy, but he's taking on an opponent who they're almost night and day. And even though they seem to be close in the beginning, right? Drake was a bigger star and he put Kendrick on his tour, and then next thing you know, they were on each other's albums. But Kendrick, he can be compared to like Nas. Not saying he's Nas or anything like that, but his content matter is more like that, more of the conscious, whereas Drake is more in a Jay-Z lane where he's commercial. Drake has, for better or worse, he's been in these club scenes, club songs, dancing and singing, and he still claims he's the best rapper, and he's not. He's not. Some of y'all might disagree. He's not. If somebody else is writing your lyrics, you can't claim to be the best rapper ever. It's kind of like if there's a cheese making contest. I heard on the radio the other day where people were making cheese. It's a thing, right? People claim to make the best anything, the best chili, the best hot dogs, whatever, right? If you claim to make the best cheese, and let me get my notifications off here so I don't get in trouble. If you claim to make the best cheese, what classifies as cheese? Can organic cheese have a trump over some other kind of cheese that has other ingredients? In this particular case, it was like a vegan cheese that wasn't even real cheese. Okay? And these guys won. So I digress. Did they really win, though? Did Drake really win against Meek Mill? Can Drake really win against Kendrick if he's got ghostwriters? But I don't think people really care as much because it's like, well, you knew what you were getting into. And Drake is like, hey, it's 20v1 because it's him going against Rick Ross, Metro Boomin, Future, The Weeknd, all of these guys, A$AP Rocky, and Kendrick. But Kendrick flipped that on him nicely when Kendrick finally responded and said, no, it's 1v20 because it's me versus you and all your ghostwriters. Which, you can't argue that. So what actually happened, okay? Metro Boomin and Future had some issues with Drake. They put out a song on an album called We Don't Trust You, which was clearly aimed at Drake. Why they don't trust this guy, we don't actually really know. You can allege that it's over women or just money or whatever. My guess is it's probably one of those things, because these guys were collaborators. They're not like somebody you actually don't like a coworker that you've had beef with for years, and then suddenly you just come to a head, just come to blows. These guys were all collaborators. Drake has been making music. How many hits does he have with Rick Ross and Future, right? So for whatever reason, they're beefing, and they put out this album, and it's got Kendrick Lamar on a song called Like That, and he takes shots at Drake, directly. So whereas everyone else is subliminally taking shots all throughout the album, Kendrick was like, bam, there it is. And after 3 weeks and I guess peer pressure, Drake actually responded. You got to give Drake props. He actually stood up for himself. So whether you like Drake or don't, he was, I guess, in his head confident enough at this point to say, you know what, I'll serve anybody. I'm the biggest artist out here. So he survived the beef with Pusha T, in which Pusha T exposed his secret son. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really care. I mean, I don't see that as really something to shame the guy over. It's his personal life, and it's, I don't know how I can really put it. It's, folks wanted to compare that as if he had cheated on someone or, just whatever. If he was in the kid's life and y'all just didn't know he had a son, fine. People have their personal lives that they keep to themselves. I don't think that was a huge thing compared to the cover art, which shows Drake in blackface, right? Drake is black, right? United States. I don't have to get into the whole history of slavery and all that, but basically if you're mixed with African American, you're African American. You could be Asian and have a black parent. You're still considered black, even though you're blazing or half and half or whatever. People still look at you that way. Barack Obama, considered the first black U.S. president, but you forget the guy is actually half white as well. And people don't say, well, he's white because white people claim him. The history in this country with race relations and slavery and all that, it just was like, hey, you got to be pure white or mostly look white to be considered white, right? So there's a history lesson for you, for the 5 of you who don't know what I'm talking about. That said, Drake got out of that battle pretty much unscathed, mainly because although people who rap and people who listen to rap know who Pusha T isn't really mainstream like that. He's not a guy that people are really checking for. It's kind of like I'm a fledgling channel, small channel. If I beef with the bigger channel doesn't even really have to mention me, and I could have great points on that channel or that personality, and it's not going to get the attention that it needs to without maybe somebody else also bringing it to light. But Drake doesn't have that luxury going in a battle against Kendrick Lamar because Kendrick is known. He may not be a bigger star than Drake, but he's definitely, number one, a better rapper. He's more creative artistically, and you can argue with me on that, but when you look at the credits of most of Kendrick's songs, if not all, it's Kendrick Lamar. You look at Drake's list, he's got a myriad of writers like Beyonce and some of these other singers, He's not making the stuff himself, okay? That's not a knock at him. It's just facts, okay? So speaking of facts, these guys both claim to be saying facts about each other, but like I said earlier, they don't always do that. It's not about who's telling the truth. It's about who's entertaining and who makes you feel like they're telling the truth. And Kendrick, you don't really feel like he has a place to really lie, because the stuff that he's saying about Drake, there's been little crumbs that hint to maybe this is true. Now, we live in a country here in the U.S. and a lot of other countries where it's innocent until proven guilty. But if we're being honest with each other, the court of public opinion is you're guilty until proven innocent. So if you're telling me that Drake has been involved with minors, or he doesn't write his music, and he's a womanizer and all this stuff you can find on the internet. Kendrick had some bars on when he finally responded on the song Euphoria 17 days later. People gave him flack for that. Oh, it took you 17 days. It actually took Drake 21 days to respond to the verse on Like That. Okay? It took Kendrick so long to respond, even Kanye remixed the Like That song with a verse going at Kendrick that he removed and just left the one going at Drake. So anyway, moving back to Drake. Drake responded with not one but two songs. One called Push Ups, Drop and Give Me 50, and that was a great song. It was a banger. It was a banger. The thing is, Drake spent time going at not just Kendrick, though. He also went at Rick Ross, who probably got the worst of it, in my opinion. And Future, Metro Boomin, Weeknd, all of them. Dope song, though. He then responded to that with a follow-up called Tailor Made, which he claimed was a freestyle. Now, Drake is claiming to leak these songs, but really it was just like, well, Kendrick ain't responding, so he's going to keep attacking him. And that's what Drake should have done this entire battle, was attack. He just didn't do that. And I'll get to why a little bit later. So Kendrick is finally responding, right? Because I guess he felt disrespected when in the Tailor Made freestyle, they named it Tailor Made because it's about Taylor Swift being, more of a star than Kendrick, and he can't release music because of her. He made up this reason, I guess, that Kendrick's going to put out an album, but he can't put out his album because it'll bump heads with Taylor. But really, Kendrick was behind the scenes making like 10 songs. He was tweaking 10 songs. So he had an arsenal. He had a full clip ready for Drake, okay? And Drake used AI voices of Tupac and Snoop Dogg to kind of steal whatever ammunition he thought Kendrick had against him by saying what he thought Kendrick would say about him preemptively in the voices, in the likeness of Tupac and Snoop Dogg. Now, some people thought it was clever and creative. Others thought it was disrespectful to Tupac. I myself was kind of in the middle. I thought it was creative to hear something like that. But that's something that the fans do. Why is Drake doing that? He doesn't need to do that. So it came off a little more corny to me in hindsight, because he was, doing all this to get Kendrick to respond, but hey, he poked the bear. So when it comes to Sympathy, it's like, Drake, you can argue that you were getting jumped, which he was. He was like Caesar, getting ready to be stabbed in the back by his, so-called friends in the music industry. But Drake asked for this. He really did. Kendrick responds on Euphoria, and he breaks down various bars and lots of intricate rhyme schemes and just stuff that went over people's heads, some of it, and people didn't like the voices. I know I didn't like the voice that he was using, but the energy was there, that he was in a place like, hey, I'm going to be calm, but I'll be angry when I need to be. But at the end of the song, he lets you know that he's uncomfortable with Drake because Drake is really not authentic. He describes Drake as not really being black, and that rubs some people the wrong way, myself included, because it's like, what is black? That's a conversation for another channel. But to surmise it here, he's basically saying Drake is not really of the culture. So he's not so much saying that Drake can't use the N-word and things like that because he's light-skinned or he's half white. What he's really saying, because, J. Cole is also half white. J. Cole is from where I'm from. We grew up in the same area. But J. Cole carries himself a little differently, where he's more in tune with hip hop and the culture and all that. Whereas Drake, you look at his background, born in a very affluent neighborhood, Jewish mother. He didn't come from any kind of struggle or anything like that. I don't think that going through a struggle or hard times makes you black, but Drake was as far removed from that back then, and then you look at Drake now, it's like he's emulating something. He doesn't really relate to it. Drake then was wearing the Carlton Banks sweaters and had the Will Smith bowl cuts and everything. But Drake now has the cornrows and the tats and the grills and is talking that talk. And Kendrick was really taking a lot of time, 6 minutes and some change, to call him out on it. I know this video is long, so I'm wanting to talk, but I'm trying to give you everything here that I can in a bridge version. I've watched loads and loads of videos. I've spent a lot of time. So for those of you like, where are the video games? I'm sorry, y'all. We're getting back to video games because I believe this beef is over. So Kendrick doubled down, and he put out a song called 616 in LA. Now, for those of you who don't get that reference, well, it's number one referencing Drake's timestamp series. Drake has these songs, and I'm not going to name them accurately, but like 4 p.m. in Calabasas, 8 a.m. in Charlotte or whatever. Just songs like that where he timestamps them, and Kendrick was poking fun at that by saying 616 in LA. So, 3 hours time difference. It's probably 9 something when that song dropped, Eastern Standard Time. But the point is, there's other little metaphorical things that people have reached out and said, oh, well, 616 is Tupac's birthday. 616 is Father's Day. 616 is the day that Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were buried. And the cover art for this song has a singular black glove. Now, Drake compares himself to Michael Jackson. It's very interesting. He thinks he's a big star, almost as big, if not bigger, than Michael Jackson. And Kendrick points out that Prince outlived Michael Jackson, and Prince had more talent. Prince wrote his own songs. But, Drake is kind of like, well, what's a king to a prince? What's king of pop to Prince, So they're going back subliminally, and nice little plays on words here. But the fact of the matter is, none of this is confirmed by Kendrick. It's just creative to those of us who think that Kendrick is as creative as we think he is. But lo and behold, it's revealed that Kendrick, when he follows up with a third diss, and I'm going to get to Drake's diss that he actually finally responded to. It's an actual bigger picture, and I won't post any of these pictures here because Kendrick really didn't have permission to post them, right? He posted a picture of Drake's father's belongings and some of Drake's belongings in a hotel room. He's basically telling Drake in the 616 track that, how do you know OVO isn't working for me? How do you know you don't have a mole in your camp? And this picture is the first hint that, oh, Kendrick is hip to what Drake's moves are going to be, what Drake is actually going to respond to him with. And this is somewhat given credence when Drake responds that night to the song with a full video called Family Matters, kind of, parroting the TV show Family Matters with Urkel, right? And he goes at Kendrick some more, and mostly Kendrick, but he does leave some bars for A$AP Rocky, a bar for, a couple of these other guys, But most of it is on Kendrick. He has the van from the cover of the Good Kid, Mad City album, and he's taking it to some kind of junkyard or whatever to get demolished. Creative and everything. He's basically teasing Kendrick. It would have got a lot more shine, except Kendrick stomped all over it. He overshadowed the whole song because within 30 minutes to an hour, he's got a response called Meet the Grams. And this is one of the most scathing disses probably ever in hip-hop. It's definitely top 10 now because he basically takes a Eminem Stan-like approach, and he's writing letters to not only Drake's son, but Drake's mother and father, to an alleged daughter that Drake has, and to Drake himself. And it's a master class on how talented Kendrick is. Don't get me wrong, these guys are basically writing poetry to each other about why they don't like each other. Voltaire and some of these French and romantic, writers from back yesteryear would be proud, But Kendrick shows he's on another level. I said this to other people. Drake is the paintbrush, but Kendrick is the actual artist. Drake gives you a product. Kendrick actually gives you art. I'm not saying Drake can't, his music isn't art, but when you sit back and listen to Drake, you could nod your head like, started from the bottom, now the whole team, and that can motivate you to just get some money, but what else does it do for you? Whereas Kendrick puts you in a different element. Kendrick makes you want to dig deep into, and I'm not going to get a whole breakdown into their styles, but those of you who listen to them, you know what I'm talking about. It's reasons why Kendrick has more Grammys than Drake. They kind of look for stuff like that, but I'm not here to argue those points. What I'm here to argue is the differences between the two so that you understand that Kendrick attacked Drake with a whole different palette of styles of rap. Whereas Drake was basically sticking to what he was good at, which was that back-to-back, that energy, that aggression. And by the time Kendrick responded with that song, Drake didn't seem to have that same energy anymore. Because in this song, Kendrick is not only alluding to Drake being a bad father and a womanizer and just pretty much borrowing different styles from, other people. He basically says, stay away from Drake. He could be a pedophile. LeBron, Steph Curry, stay away from this guy because he's got pedophiles on his staff, right? And it's hard for me to talk about this on YouTube. So, but shout out to Kendrick for allowing us creators to play his music, of which I'm not playing any of his music, right? But allowing us to use his music and stuff like that to talk about it without taking money out of our pockets. You got to applaud Kendrick for that. Okay, so Drake responded to that with, hey, I don't have no kid. I don't have an extra kid. But it's like, how do we know that? How do we know you guys aren't lying? How do we know that's not cap? Because the kind of life that you've been showing us you live says otherwise. There's videos of Drake kissing a 17-year-old girl on stage after he found out she was 17. Basically, he had her on stage and was groping her and then gives her the microphone. She says she's 17. And then he's amazed and he's just like, how can you look like that? Instead of, whoa, you're 17, you need to get off stage. He's just like, oh, well. He basically says, I'm too young to go to jail yet. That's pretty much what he says. If you watch the video, you can type in Drake 17-year-old on stage and on YouTube and find this video. But see, Drake is so famous that people overlook that. They don't make a big deal out of it. None of this stuff that Drake has been doing. Drake settled out of court with a woman who alleged that he raped her. And the settlement was $500,000, $530,000. So, I'm not saying he did anything, but I'm not saying he didn't either. Because that's a hefty price to pay for something you didn't do. Something clearly happened that wasn't right to agree to that amount of money. But moving on. Kendrick has been talking about these things, and maybe you didn't catch him because of the way he was delivering the raps, but he slows it down and Meet the Grams enough to where it's got a haunting beat that just kind of loops. It's you have no choice but to listen. This isn't a bop. But Kendrick isn't done yet. He responds with the bop. So Drake had a bop with Back to Back, right? And he had a bop with Push-Ups. And so Kendrick was like, well, I can do that too. He had this on deck. He's got his foot basically on Drake's neck. And he releases a song called They Not Like Us. Or maybe it's just called Not Like Us, okay? And in this song, it's got a cool West Coast beat, DJ Mustard, unlike the Alchemist beat on Meet the Grams. And he's just going in, mocking Drake, calling the label OVO and calling OVO standing for other vaginal option. He's talking about the minor. He's telling Drake he probably struck a chord and it's probably A minor, like A minor on a keyboard. Lots of memorable lines there. Sweet chin music, and I'm not passing the ox. I mean, Kendrick just goes ham on this track. And you see people at parties. Rick Ross is even mocking Drake at a huge pool party with 200-300 people, and they're all vibing to that song. I mean, there was no reprieve for Drake at this point. And Drake finally responded, taking a page out of Kendrick's book, and named a song called The Heart Part 6. Kendrick has a series called The Heart, and he usually releases one of those songs before he drops out an album. And Drake was trying to be funny, saying, hey, if you can do the timestamp thing, I can do the heart thing. And in this song, the beat's okay, but Drake doesn't have that same energy. The energy I was talking about he had on the others, he's kind of defending himself. Instead of being in offense mode like he's been this entire time, he's now in defense mode, and that's not a good look for Drake, because it's kind of like somebody saying, hey, I'm not racist, but it's like, well, you really don't have to defend yourself in a way that you're making excuses. You could just look at what you did and be like, nah, I didn't do that. This is what actually happened. Instead, Drake is like, I'm not a pedophile, but what about your wife sleeping with this guy, right? Drake, most of this time attacking Kendrick, has been calling Kendrick a fake messiah, and that he makes this music that is about freeing the slaves. Everything that Drake has been saying about Kendrick has mostly been a misstep. I'm not saying they haven't been, clever hits and, good punchlines. The problem is Drake has been telling Kendrick, you need to back your stuff up with facts. But Drake isn't doing this either. And he says on this song, hey, we've been setting you up. We've been feeding you fake information. But why didn't you lead with that in the Family Matters song? But the reality is, fans of Drake have been saying this online, and it seems like Drake has just been scouring the internet and taking in what they've been saying and trying to use that as, oh, all the stuff Kendrick has been saying is fake. But if it really was, show us receipts, Drake. If you're laying a trap, why not show the phone calls? Show the text message. Show the person that's meeting with Kendrick and have them come out and be like, yeah, we set him up. It wasn't real. He's saying all this stuff. I don't think that takes away a majority of the impact of the disses, because Meet the Grams is still a scathing song, even if you remove the verse about a daughter that may or may not exist. Drake has a line in the song Pop That with French Montana, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne. And Rick Ross is beefing with Drake because he wouldn't clear a verse for French Montana for them to be on his album, right? So we harken all the way back to that. Drake says about one of his dogs yelling, wilding out, free my dogs till they all free, or something to that degree. One of them I coached up, got 3 kids, and they all 3, but we always been the type of crew that been good without a plan B. Like plan B, like the birth control. So, you just don't give Drake the benefit of the doubt that this isn't true, because everything that he's kind of been telling you is like, he's a wild dude, he's a party animal, he's, with different women, And that's the lane that he's carved, the lane that he's excelled at, and the battle rap lane, he thinks he can do everything. And just because you're kind of a jack of all trades, not that Drake is, he's got a couple of lanes. He's kind of two-dimensional to me. He can sing and he can, rap when he wants to. And maybe the ghostwriters are responsible for a lion's share of that. I don't know. But what I do know is when it comes to straight bars, there was really no way he was going to beat Kendrick. But I give him props for at least making it interesting, because it really could have been over after 2 songs. Maybe if Kendrick responded a lot sooner, it would have been over, but Kendrick was coming up with a narrative. Kendrick was giving you a movie. While Drake created a video, Kendrick actually gave you a movie lyrically, and that's why he won this battle, in my opinion. Kendrick put up. So do you feel sorry for Drake because Drake was getting jumped? Let's not say he wasn't. He was getting jumped by a lot of artists, and unfortunately, he addressed these side guys who can't really compete with him. ASAP Rocky is not in the position to out-rap him right now. Neither is Ross, even though Ross put out a diss that was okay. He wasn't out-rapping Drake. Future has not said anything, and Metro Boomin wasn't going to rap. He did release a instrumental that's calling BBL Drizzy. BBL took me a while to figure that out. Brazilian butt lift Drizzy. Because Drake has been rumored that he's had surgery, a nose reduction or whatever. He's been having, he's on Ozempic and got his abs done and all kinds of stuff. Kendrick talked about that on some of these songs too. Kendrick put up a picture of Drake's home and it had the sex offender icons all over it. Hilarious. He put up the picture of the glove and then an expanded version that showed Drake's father's medicine and Drake's medicine and all kinds of stuff like that. So, you know, those are things that he had to later remove because you're not HIPAA laws or something like that. You're not allowed to put stuff up like that. But the damage had already been done. I don't really feel sorry for Drake. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have sympathy for Drake because he asked for this. He goaded Kendrick. He said, come on. Everything that he asked him for, you better come up with a quintuple entendre response. Kendrick gave him that. And then when you thought Kendrick was going to let him breathe, he didn't. So Drake asked for this. All this could have been prevented if Drake would have just maybe ignored some of the stuff. Or maybe he didn't go at Kendrick's wife. Excuse me, people call her his wife, but fiance. They have some kids together. Drake used an angle saying that one of the kids is Kendrick's best friend. Then he tried to say that Kendrick was molested because on a song, Mother I, Sober, he talks about his mom actually being molested and how he was breaking this cycle and all that. But Drake was just kind of reaching for any kind of thing he could attack Kendrick with. But Kendrick isn't a public figure like that. You know? You could attack somebody like Eminem with all this stuff that's out there about him, but Eminem has told you a lot of this stuff, so none of this stuff is going to come out as shocking, right? Whereas the stuff that's being said about Drake is shocking because most people just assume that a wealthy person is going to have a bunch of women. A wealthy person is going to, you know, have some children outside of their, marriage or whatever you want to call it. And it's really just put a light on what kind of person Drake is because we have social media now that can show things, you know. Imagine Eminem and Benzino going at each other back in the day and Benzino actually having video proof of Eminem saying the N-word. I don't know if that would have ended Eminem's career, but it would have maybe helped offset what Benzino was lacking, which was actual lyrics, you know. Lyrically, Benzino can't hold a candle to Eminem. But that's a story for another video. Don't come at me in the comments upset about it. I've rambled on long enough. This is probably my longest sympathy for. But I figured if I did a Drake Bell part 2, we continue the Drake theme and do a video here. That said, I'm going to end it here. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell me who you think won. Do you think it was Kendrick? Do you think it was Drake? Do you even care? I felt like this was one of those beefs where even if you aren't into rap, you probably heard about it. I know I saw it on the news. I saw it on New York Times. We just hope it doesn't get violent. Nobody gets hurt. Unfortunately, that has happened. It's been reported that people have been vandalizing Drake's, stores in London, spray painting and stuff. And his bodyguard even got shot. So prayers up to the bodyguard, or not bodyguard, security guard to his home. Even The Weeknd, his manager was shot at or something like that at his house. We don't want any of the violence, okay? It should have just been lyrical violence. And maybe Kendrick comes out with more content, but it looks like he sees that Drake has conceded because Drake pretty much was like, if you listen to The Heart Part 6, he had no heart. It was just like, hey, I don't want to keep going back and forth with you. And no reason, everyone thinks Kendrick won, so no reason to really continue, right? He was kicking a dead horse, if you ask me. But I'm going to see y'all in the next one. Other Yellow Hat Guy is out. Hey, how are you? I'm Captain Sensation. I'm on Twitch and YouTube, enjoy my creations. Movie reviews, let's plays, they're amazing. Stay tuned for more, I'm Captain Sensation. Sympathy for Pokemon and Atari. Wait, here's more funny Mario Party. Games that are chores and some that are gnarly. Fun with Gen X, Virgin Rose, and Kari. Woo! There we go, y'all. Been waiting to do that for a little bit. But hey, see y'all on the next one.